Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from the group 5. We will present it about a state responsibility as a form of legal protection against coral reef damage problem. Before explaining our topic, I would like to introduce the member of group. The first, me Anissa Sitidara, and then Iklima Korina Bila, and the last, Fatima Syahra. Okay, there are three outline in our presentation today. The first is introduction, and then state responsibility as a form of legal protection against coral reef damage, and the last, how to resolve a dispute over coral reef damage in the perspective of environmental law. Okay, for the first, I will explain the introduction. According to Article 33, Paragraph 3 of the 1945 Constitution of the Republic of Indonesia, the state has the power to manage natural resources. The state, as a holder of power, is required by the Constitution to use the power as much as possible for the benefit of the people. The state is obligated to carry out its obligation in providing legal protection for the management and preservation of the environment on land, sea, and air, especially for coral reef. There are many benefits that can be obtained from the coral reef, such as the first is from ecological point of view. From ecological point of view, coral reef function as a balancer for the marine environment, providing habitat and food sources for various types of marine life, fish habitat, spawning grounds for marine biota, resistance to abrasion, current break, and wave to protect the ecosystem. Number two, from an economic point of view. From economic point of view, coral reef serve as a source of food needs, a source of medical materials, and a source of forage exchange for tourism. And the last, in terms of biodiversity. In the terms of biodiversity, coral reef are thought as tropical in the ocean, which helps stabilize global climate change by abating exchange carbon dioxide emission in the atmosphere, and slowing the rate of global warming or rise in Earth temperature. For the next slide, we are presented by Iklima.
The next is about state responsibility as a form of legal protection against coral reef damage. The first is based on international law or UN Clause 1982. In UN Clause Article 1 and 92 state that states have an obligation to protect and preserve the marine environment. Indirectly, this convention obligates states to conserve and protect the marine environment, especially coral reefs, as a place of protection. States are responsible for compliance their international obligations. With regard to the protection and preservation of coral reefs, they must assume redress obligations in accordance with international law. States should ensure that measures are available under their statutory system to obtain prompt, adequate compensation or other assistance caused by damage to coral reefs by individual or by legal entities under their jurisdiction. In addition, countries must cooperate in implementing international law regarding the responsibility and liability for compensation for the assessment of compensation for damage and the resolution of disputes that arise, as well as the criteria as procedures for the payment of compensation. And the second is based on national law, according to law number 32 of 2009, concerning environmental protection and management, article 87, paragraphs 1 and 2, which reads, the first is every person in charge of a business and or activity who violates the law in the form of environmental pollution and or destruction causes losses to other people or the environment is obligated to pay compensation and or take certain actions. And the second is any person who transfer the nature and form of business and or activities of a business entity that violates the law does not absolve legal responsibility and or obligation of the business entity. Therefore, each person in charge of activities that violate the law in the form of violation or environmental destruction must pay compensation for certain actions. In paragraph 2, every activity of a legal entity does not relieve the legal responsibility or obligation of the business entity. Okay, and the next is how to resolve dispute over coral reef damage in the perspective of law of environmental law. Okay, regarding coral reef in Article 9, Paragraph 1 of the Decree of the State Minister of the Environment Number 4 of 2001 concerning standard criteria for coral reef damage, it is that the governor, region, mayor shall supervisor business activities that are expected to cause damage to coral reef, conservation effort to prevent further damage to coral reef. It is necessary to manage coral reef. Management is essentially a process of controlling human action so that the of coral reef can be done easily by taking into account environmental sustainability. One of them is the concept of the establishing a marine protected area. Okay, and the next is the main roles as follow. The first is protection, biodiversity, and its structure, function, and integrity ecosystem. So conservation area can contribute to maintaining biodiversity at allotropic level at the ecosystem protection, food web relationship, and ecological process in a system. And the second is increased fishery yield. Conservation area can protect spawning area, rearing, foraging for food, increasing reproductive capacity and stock of fish resource. And the third is providing recreational and tourist place. And the fourth is expand knowledge and understanding of ecosystem. Conservation area can increase public understanding and concern for coastal, marine, and small island ecosystem. Provide a relatively third place for long-term observation and monitoring, and play an important role in public education regarding the importance of marine conservation and the impact of human activity on marine biodiversity. And the last but not least is provide socioeconomic benefit for coastal community. Conservation area can assist coastal community in maintaining their economic base through optimal and sustainable use of environmental resource and service. That marine conservation area play an important role for the conservation and management of coral reef by protect and damage area of coral reef that can be sources of larvae and as a tool to aid recovery, protect area free from human impact and suitable as substrate for coral attachment and regrowth. And the third is ensuring that coral reef are sustainable. The needs of the local community who depend on it. Okay, that's all for our group. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.